Hello, Tigger.
Hello, Molly.
We've missed you. How have you been?
I missed you, Molly. I'm totally fine. How are you?
Good. So, I have a couple questions for you, and I want to know, where have you been for the past year?
I've been banging my head off the wall for the last year. Well, first of all, you left me, for a little while, and I can't, I can barely answer my phone without you, never mind make YouTube videos. So, we tried making a couple videos after you left and they sucked. So we just sort of gave up on that. But, the other thing was, we like last year at this time, we really were just starting to ramp up this business. We were just starting to scale up. We had just purchased our large reactor units, and as probably someone can imagine, we just kept running into one problem after another. There's so much problem solving involved in scaling up any business, and I think with the worms it's particularly the case because there's not a lot of great information out there. I mean, you can watch YouTube videos, there's a couple books you can buy, but the truth is we're kind of pioneering this thing to a certain degree. And I just kept running into problems, and thankfully at this point I think we've got most everything figured out. We're going to have more problems in the near future. I'm absolutely sure of that because we're kind of taking on new projects now, and we're trying to build this thing up even more. And I've learned that you're always going to have to do problem solving. So we're just taking it as it comes, and we're doing really good. But as far as putting content out on YouTube, it was absolutely premature. So now that I think we've gotten some things straightened out, and now that you're back here, I think we're going to be able to put out a lot more content. I'm definitely looking forward to that.
So, we must know, how did you get into this whole worm thing from the beginning?
Yeah, so that's a little bit of a funny story. I don't like to give my ex-wife much credit for anything, but besides my kids. But the truth is, I went to pick up my kids one day at my ex-wife's house, and she's like, Tigger, look what I got here. And she's like kind of a hippie, all right? So I think she had seen on Facebook or something like that, something about red wigglers. And so she had bought maybe a pound or two of red wigglers, and she had them in a bin, and she was feeding them her banana peels and apple cores and things like that. And she was explaining to me how, the worms break everything down and she's able to use the worm castings in the garden. But the thing that she said to me that really kind of struck a chord with me is she was saying that the worms doubled in population every 2 or 3 months. And having ran a few businesses, as soon as I heard that, you have this product where the inventory self-replicates and doubles every few months, I just found that absolutely intriguing. And as I've said a million times, to other people, it was real weird with the worms. Like, as soon as I saw her worm bin, I just kind of knew that that's what I was going to be doing the rest of my life. I had a little bit of experience with worm castings because when I was in college, all my friends grew weed. Like, that was just, I went to college in the 90s, and it seemed like everybody was growing weed, in their house or their closet back then or whatever. And so I had some familiarity with worm castings because a lot of my friends were using them to grow cannabis. So I knew about them, and I knew that they were kind of magic, and I knew that they were really cool, but I never really imagined myself getting involved in worms as a business or worm castings or anything like that. But yeah, as soon as I saw them at my ex-wife's house, I knew. So I bought myself some worms, and I started off in my closet, and then it took over my entire basement, and then the next thing I know, I'm hiring people, and I got these enormous worm reactors, and then I'm buying tractors, and then I'm buying trucks. And it's kind of cool because it's like, it's every 12-year-old boy's dream come true to have an excuse to buy a tractor. So I was just like, I was super into that, because like I'm getting to do all this stuff that like I never really had a good reason, to spend money on trucks and tractors, and now I do. So I'm super happy about that. But yeah, the worms for me were just love at first sight, and I think a lot of people have an experience like that in their life. maybe it's like when they meet their husband or wife, or maybe it's when they stumble into what eventually they're going to do for a living. I have done so many different things. I've ran a bunch of different businesses, all sorts of different stuff. But this is what I love. And yeah, and I'm definitely going to stick with it, and I'm super happy with it. And so yeah, that's how I got started with the worms. And just a follow up to that, I did have to rescue the worms from my ex-wife.
I'm back.
Because, well, one day I went over there, and after I learned a few things, about worms and like healthy worms and things like that, I went over there and I realized her worms were not very healthy. So I rescued those worms. She was glad to give them to me because I think she knew that they weren't doing too well. And so those worms and their descendants are still swimming in my reactors. We barely lose any worms at the farm. Maybe we lost a few here and there, but so those original worms that I first fell in love with are still my employees as far as I'm concerned.
So where do you see this industry going in the next 5 to 10 years?
The worm industry?
Yeah.
I think the sky's the limit for the worm industry. I think that we're like pioneering something that's super important. I really like Elon Musk. I listen to a lot of what he has to say. I've read a lot about Elon Musk, and one of the things that he's always saying is that you have to find a problem that's worth dedicating your life to. And the soil problem that we have, not just in the United States, but in the entire world, is so severe, and there has to be a solution to it or we're all going to starve. And it's really clear to me that the worms are the solution to the soil crisis. So if you look at chemical fertilizer, which has been, chemical fertilizer has been an enormous benefit to mankind in the sense that it's allowed us to, get to, what are we at, 7 billion people in the world right now, and most people are fed, I guess. And chemical fertilizer has been the way that we've done that. But the price of chemical fertilizer has gone through the roof, and a lot of that is because of the war in Ukraine and the problems in Russia. A lot of chemical fertilizer came from those two places, and as a result, the price of chemical fertilizer is very, very high. It's getting to the point where it's almost as economical to buy worm castings as it is to buy chemical fertilizer. And of course, anyone who's studied this knows that chemical fertilizer is a short-term fix and a long-term problem. And so the worms are the solution to this, and as the price of chemical fertilizer continues to increase, the worms are going to become a more and more viable option. But, it's not just the soil crisis. Like, if you think about the food scrap situation that we have, whether it's with grocery stores or restaurants, or even just people at home throwing away their food scraps, this is an enormous problem, because when we throw away food scraps and they go into a landfill, they just about inevitably turn into methane. And methane is super poisonous. So when we're doing worm farming, we're able to take a problem, which is food scraps, and turn them into like a miracle solution. And so almost from every angle this business makes sense. The trick is making it economically viable. And so, it takes a lot of work, and it also takes a lot of risk, because as you scale a business up, you're buying equipment that you're hoping pays for itself later. And so that's a huge risk, and it's a risk that most people aren't willing to take. I absolutely believe in this business model, and so far we've never had a problem selling our worm castings. They sort of seem to sell themselves. I think we're producing pretty high quality worm castings. And so, yeah, I think that this industry is primed. I really do. And I think that the more the merrier, in the sense that we don't need to keep corporate secrets here, because everybody that gets involved in this business is only helping us. So like if somebody else wants to start a worm farm, even if they've got more money than me, or even if they're more talented than me, they're not hurting me at all. Because as we produce more and more worm castings, we're actually creating more aggregate demand. And once it catches on with the average person, just how magical worm castings are for food production, for gardening in general, the demand is going to go through the roof. So I'm very, very confident that we're in the right business. It makes me really, really happy to be solving what I think is an enormous problem. When I'm talking about Elon Musk, like, it's absolutely clear to me I'm not going to be building any rocket ships to go to Mars. I'm not going to be building any electric cars. I'm not going to be doing any stuff like that, but I can do this. I can absolutely do this, and I think that we're solving as big a problem as there is, and I'm really happy to get up in the morning, and I'm really happy to go to work. The worms are like my best friends. They're
feel good doing it.
Well, yeah, and it's real obvious that the worms are happy. I always say I want to be reincarnated as one of my worms because they have like the best life you could possibly imagine. When you go into the reactor and you just sort of put your hands in there, you just see what I describe as like a rave or a party. The worms are just super happy. So, I'm as excited as can be, honestly, and I get so excited, like, when I start talking about worms, I can barely shut up, So people are probably already sick of me talking about it right now. So yeah, that's where it sits as far as I'm concerned.
That's amazing. Is there anything else you want to add to this interview for our subscribers?
No, the only thing I want to say is, I'm sorry we've been gone for so long. I know that there's a huge desire for this content because we still keep getting subscribers, even though I think some of our old videos aren't even that great, in the sense that I already disagree with myself about some of the stuff that we were communicating in the old videos, and that's totally okay. But yeah, we're gonna rededicate now that you're back. Okay, now that my creative half is back, we're gonna rededicate ourselves to making content. I know that people want to see it, and I'm really excited for everybody to watch us grow because we just bought 12 acres, and we're going to be building all sorts of stuff out here. It's like it's going to be like a real farm, and it's going to be really awesome. And so, I hope everybody kind of stays tuned in. We just revamped our website. We're going to get our social media stuff together. Thank God I don't have to run the social media. That's going to be your problem, not mine. But yeah, we're going to be putting out a lot of content, and I want to show everybody how to do this, because the more people that do this, the better. And even if it's at a very small scale, or even if you're just buying worm castings to use them in your garden, you're doing the right thing, as opposed to buying chemicals that are poisoning everything. And we've had enough poison in this world. So we're absolutely dedicated to fixing things, and to showing people how to do it, and to having a ton of fun, and just kind of just spreading the love, because everybody that works here is happy.
Yes.
And I can't wait to hire more people. I can't wait to buy more trucks and tractors. I can't wait to have my kids growing up and taking this business over as I get older. So yeah, I hope everybody stays tuned, and we're gonna be here for sure.
Thank you, Tigger.
Okay,
See you
take
next
care.
time.
Bye-bye.